There is a moment in which the union of nations and the creation of Britain was almost stopped before it had begun. It began one night in the winter of 1605 when a man was arrested in London and taken to the Tower. When his jailers asked his name, he told them what he told the men who had arrested him, that he was John Johnson, a servant from Yorkshire. Over the days that followed, the prisoner was interrogated and tortured. Every detail of those interrogations and every stage in his confession was carefully recorded in documents that are today held at the National Archives.
This is a confession that the prisoner gave 2 days after his arrest. And in it, he admits, among other things, to something that his interrogators had already worked out, which is that his name was not John Johnson. At the end, he signs using his real name, Guido Fawkes. Guy Fawkes. 2 days later, Fawkes signed another confession. In this, he admits to more details about the gunpowder plot. Now, we don't know exactly what happened to Fawkes in the 48 hours between these two confessions, but we do know that on the orders of the king, he was tortured. And it is possible to see the effects of that torture in this document. He attempts to write Guido, but instead there's just this faint scratch on the page. It's as if he can't hold the quill, and he doesn't even attempt to write his surname. There are instead just these two little strokes across the page. This horrifically speaks to the breaking of an individual, but it also tells us of the great forces behind the gunpowder plots of war and religion, intolerance, Reformation, counter-Reformation. But there is another force at play here, the force of nationalism and xenophobia. Because although the main aim of Fawkes and the plotters was to kill a Protestant king and revive the Catholic faith in England, they also had a secondary aim. And Fawkes admitted to this in another confession. And in it, Fawkes gives a long series of reasons and motivations behind the gunpowder plot. And they include what he says here, which was that the plot was done in order to prevent the union that was sought to be published at this Parliament. Because what Fawkes and the others intended to do was to present their act of terrorism as having saved England from what was then the key political project of King James, which was a union between his kingdoms, England and Wales and Scotland, a union that would have created a new state, Great Britain.